Well, it all initially started from very different reasons than starting a festival. Originally I was a part of a studio that was focused on video mapping called The Macula. It was an international team. Myself, Amar, and Daniel. Amar is from Bosnia, I'm Croatian, and Daniel is Czech. We, in 2010-ish, I think, we created the video mapping on the Old Town clock tower, which got us a lot of attention because at that time video mapping was not as well known as it is now. And we started kind of like picking the artists that we like, following them, and trying to, get access to their art pieces, to see them live. And then the thinking was, there's no way we can actually see all the artists that we really appreciate their work. So it was like, let's do it the other way around. Let's try to create something to be able to bring them in. So that was kind of like the background. In the meantime, we have changed the name of our studio to Hyper Binary, and the studio has one installation here. So that was the original kind of like idea behind it, actually, is to bring the artists that we really appreciate, that we are really fond of, that we are awed and amazed by the art that they create, to bring them to Prague. And Prague is a beautiful backdrop, and I really love the kind of like the contrast of the classical architecture, the beauty of the city, and the modern approach of the artists towards the city. This edition we have 18 new pieces which are created especially for this edition, and we always kind of like ask the artists to work with the space to create it site-specific if possible, and we try to give them knowledge of the space, of the area, of the history of the area where they're working. I think it's impacting more than the city actually realizes. We started collaborating with the foreign press ever since the first edition to kind of cover in this like professional press, as in your case, or let's say more general press, as we're reaching out to, The Guardian named us the top 10 light festivals, blah blah blah. We do reach out, and there's a lot of people actually coming to the city itself, not only from the Czech Republic, but also from abroad. We did an economic impact study in 2016. We did exact measurement of the number of the people that attend the festival. It was in 2016, it was 578,000 people over the course of 4 nights. They have to sleep, they have to eat, they use the transport, they use the services. So not all of them are necessarily from across this, they're from outside of the city, but a lot of them are, and we know that about 30-ish% is foreigners. What you do with a festival is actually you bring people to the city center, which is normally used by tourists. You bring locals, and you bring families together, you bring friends together to kind of experience something, probably have a few beers as well, but to experience art together in the places that they would never visit normally. Plus, one of the important points from our perspective is actually to enable people to discover the city, the areas where they don't live, because you don't necessarily go to, that part of town because you live in this part of town, and you come to that part of town and you say, oh, look at this, it's up and coming, it's beautiful, whatever. And you get to enjoy actually your city, and it's literally in different light, although it's a cliche a little bit. Good example, I think, is the church here. We're close by on Náměstí Milory, St. Ludmila's church, which is a beautiful neo-Gothic church. And honestly, I was living just around the corner, and you know that there is this beautiful church just around the corner, but you don't get to appreciate it as much because it's kind of like there, especially I've noticed when you pass through the streets, you normally kind of like look down, you don't look up. You have to force yourself actually to look up and appreciate the architecture, which in Prague, and especially some parts, is beautiful. So we kind of like really make the people raise their heads and realize what they have, and maybe even appreciate it more, because you have this beautiful church that we pass by on a daily basis, and you wouldn't necessarily have to notice how beautiful it is. Whereas with Signal, it kind of like makes you, it forces you, or makes you want to look at the church or any other building or any other garden, park, neighborhood, walk around. So I strongly believe that it makes the bond between the citizen and the city stronger. Yes, the next 100, well, this year we have a centenary of Czechoslovakia coming to life, which now we're not Czechoslovakia anymore, but 100 years ago it was one country, and it's resonating everywhere. Basically, all the institutions are on board of this kind of like theme and topic, and we thought, how can we reflect on that? And since we're Arts and Technology Festival, we decided to take it a little bit differently. So not look in the past, which kind of everybody's doing, and try to look into the next 100 years. And as we have 18 new installations this year, we approached the artists and gave them the opportunity to think through their art, what is going to happen in the next 100 years. So you have piece by XYZ who have a dystopian installation about surveillance. You have one piece which is reflecting the history of big gymnastics movement here in the Czech Republic, or sports movement, let's say. So they're reflecting it through video mapping and graffiti. And so we have several art pieces, not all of them are kind of reflecting the next 100. For example, Hotaru from with their installation Biofilms, yeah, they're reflecting on how the architecture, what would actually architecture look like if it was created by microorganisms. So that's kind of like, we gave the opportunity to the artists to think about the future through their art. So that was our take on the topic of 100 years, but rather than looking in retrospect, trying to think about the future. Well, my background is film. I'm originally from producer, and I used to run a film festival for many years. So film is the area which is supported very well. There is a structure in place, there is a system in place, and if you're a filmmaker, you have, the whole kind of like system to hold on to. If you are what we are, either as a festival or, let's say, I don't know if the right word is new media artist, I'm really kind of lost with what this is, what we do. If you're in this field, for example, Ministry of Culture does not know how to label us. So therefore, there is no support for us because you don't have a label. So there is, let's say, two big festivals. One is a little bit different. It's more indoorsy and focused more on music, which is Lunch Meet. And us, which are outdoors and more focused on, let's say, public art. We belong in a category which is visual art, which kind of would be all right, but generally it's more perceived as photography, paintings, etc., etc. So if you're an individual artist, there is no support. Like literally, it does not exist, or it's very hard. If you applied, you probably get rejected because there is no category which you fall under. There is some education in the fields, and there is more universities which work or start working with new media art technology. There is coding movement, which is kind of like micro, but it exists. And your second question, what is the biggest problem of Signal Festival? It's funding. It's easy as it is. We, from the state, if I think the city and the state together combined, we get about 1/3 of the budget. The rest is up to us to find it. And it's difficult. It's not easy. If you look at the similar festivals all around the world, they are usually completely city funded because they perceive it as a city marketing opportunity, which I think it is. The problem with city marketing is that they necessarily don't have to be or don't need to be artistically edgy. You can basically light up anything, whereas we actually really try to search for art that intrigues us, support the artists that we perceive they are pushing the boundaries, or invite the artists that move us. But still, we managed to have a really popular festival with pushing the boundaries. So it kind of like works, but we're not city employees. Our background is art. So it's a little bit different situation, but hand in hand, we don't get that much support, or we don't have 100% support as if it would be if we were a city organization. Yes, well, but with the success of the festival, it is getting more and more open, and we hope to get more sponsors. But hand in hand, we don't want to create an advertising festival. We basically all these sponsor activations are created in-house, so we do it because we know how we want to keep it. We want to keep it in balance. You don't want to have logos plastered all over the city, although our life would be easier if we did. But we love this city, we respect the city, and we don't want to fuck this city. We're now in the process of longer term planning. So we're actually thinking about what's happening next. The first project, which is the next project, is Signal Playground. So in April 2019, we're presenting an indoor exhibition for kids, focused on kids' education, or yes, education about art and tech. Hopefully, if everything works out well, in end of 2019, we're opening a permanent video mapping exhibition focused on history of Prague, which was going to be ticketed. So it should be a revenue stream for Signal, because our life, as I mentioned, is not that easy in terms of fundraising. And then there is another project that I got inspired by, and it's basically something to do. We want to do something out of the city. So it's like walk in the woods with digital art. So you would kind of like wander in the woods. Guys from Moment Factory did a tremendous job with their Luminous series, and when I saw that, I was like, yeah, this is something we can do our take on the same idea, but maybe with different approach, with different narrative. So this is like the long haul. Plus, we're trying to, if we're lucky enough, to collaborate with one of the bigger galleries in the Czech Republic to bring a bigger name, like the name that rings the bell for everybody, like you know, the classical artist, classical light artist. You can fill in blanks, I guess. So we will see if that pans out, but we're kind of like looking at 2023, something like that we would open up a big exhibition. But God knows what's gonna happen, and you know, but we have kind of like, we know where we're going at least, or we know where we want to be going.